The Declaration. Ambassador Elara Chen stood at the observation deck of Harmony Station, her silhouette framed against the backdrop of stars. Earth shimmered blue and green in the distance, a reminder of humanity's birthplace. She adjusted the collar of her formal attire, a simple navy uniform with silver threading that identified her as Earth's representative to the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador, priority transmission from the Valkyrie High Command, announced Iris, her AI assistant, its holographic form materializing beside her. Chen turned toward the large display wall. Put it through, Iris. The screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Supreme Commander Vexnar of the Valkyrie Dominion. His reptilian form towered over the other assembly representatives visible in the background. The ridge of bony plates running along his skull gleamed under the council chamber lights, and his vertical pupils narrowed as they focused on Chen. "Greetings, Supreme Commander," Chen said with a measured nod. "To what do I owe this direct communication?" The Valkyrie's translator converted his guttural sounds into standard Galactic. "There is no honor in this exchange, human. I speak to inform you that the 3,000-year peace between our civilizations is now terminated." Chen raised an eyebrow, but remained silent, allowing the reptilian commander to continue. "Your species has expanded beyond acceptable parameters," Vexnar rumbled, his scaled hand spreading wide in what the Valkyrie considered a display of dominance. "Your recent colonization of the Orion Arm violates the boundaries established in the Treaty of Proxima. Your refusal to acknowledge Valkyrie superiority can no longer be tolerated. Prepare for annihilation." Several other assembly representatives visible in the background shifted uncomfortably. The luminary ambassador, a being of pure crystalline energy, caught Chen's eye and gave a subtle fluctuation in her light pattern, their equivalent of an apologetic gesture. Chen reached for her cup of tea, a porcelain antique from old Earth that she carried everywhere. The ceramic felt warm against her palm as she took a slow, deliberate sip. The action, so casual in the face of a formal declaration of war, visibly agitated the Valkyrie commander, his throat scales rippling with annoyance. "I see," she finally said, her voice level, "and the Assembly's position on this unilateral breaking of the peace." Vexnar made a dismissive gesture with one clawed hand. "The Assembly has been informed as a courtesy. This is between humans and Valkyrie." Chen exchanged a glance with Iris, the AI's holographic form pulsing once to indicate it was recording and analyzing everything. The Valkyrie had finally made their move. For 3 millennia, humans had maintained the appearance of a moderately advanced species, carefully limiting what technologies they revealed to the galactic community. Behind this facade, humanity had been evolving, building, experimenting, and preparing. "Your response, Ambassador," Vexnar demanded, his patience visibly thinning. "Do you require the standard diplomatic rejection formula, Ambassador Chen?" Iris asked quietly, its voice audible only to her. Chen's lips curved into a slight smile. "No," she replied loud enough for the transmission to capture. "Tell them we accept their declaration." The assembly chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The Valkyrie commander himself seemed taken aback, his pupils dilating in what Chen recognized as confusion. "You accept," he repeated. "That is correct, Commander Vexnar," Chen said, setting down her teacup with deliberate slowness. "Humanity accepts your declaration of war." She turned slightly. Iris informed Defense Grid to activate Protocol Prometheus. Authentication. Chen, Alpha 7 Omega. Iris pulsed bright blue. Protocol Prometheus activated. Defense Grid acknowledging across all sectors. Across the screen, the representatives of a dozen alien species watched in bewilderment. War was rarely accepted so casually, especially by a species that had always advocated for peaceful solutions. "Foolish humans," Vexnar hissed, his scales flushing with increased blood flow. "Your orbital defenses are minimal. Your fleet is outdated. Your colonies are vulnerable. You have no chance against the might of the Valkyrie Armada." Chen smiled more broadly now. Then I suppose you have nothing to worry about, Commander. As the words left her mouth, a notification appeared on every communication device linked to human networks across the galaxy. The message was simple: Protocol Prometheus active. Stay calm. Continue normal activities. Across human space, from the crowded arcologies of Earth to the newest settlements in the Orion Arm, the message spread, and with it came not panic, not fear, but laughter. It started as chuckles in coffee houses on Mars, grew to amused smiles in the research stations of Europa, blossomed into full-belly laughs in the mining colonies of the asteroid belt. On a small farming settlement at the edge of human space, a grandfather read the notification to his grandchildren gathered around the dinner table. They looked up at him with wide eyes. "Are we in danger, Grandpa?" the youngest asked. The old man smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "No, little one. This is what we've been waiting for. The day the mask comes off." In universities throughout human territory, professors paused their lectures as students received the notification. In one quantum physics class at New Oxford, the professor closed her book and said simply, "It seems today's theoretical discussion about dimensional manipulation will become rather practical sooner than expected." The class erupted in knowing laughter. In military installations, hidden within gas giants and nestled inside hollowed moons, personnel who had trained for generations without ever expecting to see actual combat roused ancient systems from their slumber. Technology that had been refined over millennia, beyond anything the galactic community could imagine, hummed to life. Back on Harmony Station, Ambassador Chen watched the Valkyrie commander's confusion with quiet satisfaction. "You will regret this arrogance," Vexnar threatened, his voice carrying less conviction than before. "Perhaps," Chen replied, "but I doubt it." She gave him a respectful nod. "We will be ready to receive your forces when they arrive, Commander. Until then, I wish you safe travels among the stars." She signaled Iris to end the transmission. As the screen went dark, she picked up her teacup again and returned to the observation window. "And so it begins," she whispered to the distant Earth. The massive Valkyrie flagship Inevitable Victory cut through the darkness of space at the head of the largest battle fleet assembled in the past 5 centuries, 1,000 ships strong. Their hulls gleaming with the dull metallic sheen of living metal, they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Zortak stood on the command deck, his tall reptilian form towering over the crew of lesser Valkyrie, who scurried about their duties. His scales, decorated with the gold markings of his high rank, reflected the soft blue light of the tactical display. "Status report," he ordered, his throat sacs vibrating softly. "All ships have successfully emerged from hyperspace," Admiral reported his second-in-command. "No detection of human defensive measures. Their orbital platforms are visible but inactive. We detect only a small number of outdated military vessels in orbit around their 4th planet." Zortak's vertical pupils shifted, taking in the tactical display. The intelligence reports had been correct. Despite 3 days of warning, the humans had made no significant defensive preparations. Their homeworld, the blue-green planet called Earth, should be visible just ahead, a prime target for the first demonstration of Valkyrie power. "Proceed as planned," Zortak ordered. "Move the fleet into position around the human homeworld. Prepare the orbital bombardment sequence as discussed." The great ships moved forward in perfect formation, their engines leaving trails of ionized particles as they accelerated toward where Earth should be. "Admiral," called the sensor officer, his voice rising with confusion. "I'm getting strange readings from the 3rd orbital position." "Explain," Zortak demanded. "The planet. It's not there." Zortak's head swiveled sharply. "What nonsense is this? Check your equipment. All systems functioning correctly." "Admiral," the officer insisted, his neck frills twitching nervously. "The moon is present and orbiting as expected, but the planet itself is gone." Zortak strode to the main view screen, his clawed feet clicking against the polished floor. The screen showed exactly what the sensors reported. Empty space where Earth should be, with the moon continuing its lonely orbit around a missing center. Impossible, Zortak muttered, his throat sacs pulsing rapidly in agitation. A planet cannot vanish. He turned to his science officer. Scan the entire system. They must have deployed some sort of cloaking technology. The science officer worked frantically at his console. No evidence of cloaking technology, Admiral. No gravitational signature where the planet should be. By all measurements, Earth has simply disappeared. A heavy silence fell over the bridge, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. The Valkyrie military had prepared for many possible human defenses. Primitive energy shields, perhaps, or desperate suicide attacks. But not this. Never this. Could our intelligence have been so wrong? Zortak wondered aloud. Could they have evacuated their entire planet? Every console on the bridge lit up with warning indicators. Admiral, the tactical officer called out, we're being scanned by an unknown energy signature. It's penetrating all our shields as if they weren't there. Zortak's claws tightened on the railing before him. Activate countermeasures. Raise all defensive. His words died in his throat as a swirl of light appeared in the center of the bridge. The light expanded, forming into the holographic image of a human female. Unlike the crude holograms used throughout the galaxy, this projection appeared solid, with perfect detail from the small lines around her eyes to the subtle movement of her clothing. The human wore a simple dark uniform with no visible rank insignia. She looked around the bridge with an expression of interest, as if examining specimens in a laboratory. "Welcome to Sol," she said cheerfully, her voice as clear as if she were physically present. "I see you're looking for Earth. I'm afraid we moved it." The revelation. Admiral Zortak's throat sacs inflated in disbelief. Moved. A planet. The words sounded ridiculous even as he spoke them. No civilization in the known galaxy had the technology to relocate an entire planet. The human woman smiled that peculiar expression that Valkyrie had never fully understood. "Just a precaution. We've been expecting you for quite some time." Zortak regained his composure, drawing himself up to his full imposing height. "I am Admiral Zortak of the Valkyrie Dominion. Your deception will not save you. Produce your planet and surrender, and perhaps some of your species will be spared." The woman's expression didn't change. "I am Commander Maya Lin, Earth Defense Force. By the way, those unusual energy readings your sensors are detecting around your fleet. That's our gravitic fold network. You're currently suspended in a time dilation field." As if to prove her point, she gestured toward the bridge window. Outside, the stars seemed frozen, their light unnaturally steady. A small piece of debris that had been floating past hung motionless in space. "While this conversation takes place in real time for us," Lin continued, "for the rest of the galaxy, it's been approximately 3 seconds since your arrival." Zortak felt a cold sensation run through his body, an instinctive fear he had never experienced in battle. This is impossible. Such technology violates fundamental laws of physics. Lin tilted her head slightly. "According to whose physics, Admiral?" "The understanding shared by the Galactic Assembly." She made a dismissive gesture. "That's like judging all mathematics based on what's taught to children." A junior officer approached Zortak, his movements hesitant. "Admiral, sensors confirm her claim. We appear to be in some sort of temporal bubble. And there's more." "Report," Zortak demanded, not taking his eyes off the human hologram. "Small devices have appeared throughout the ship. They're scanning our systems, but our countermeasures have no effect on them." Commander Lin nodded. "Just gathering some data. Don't mind those." Zortak's patience broke. "Enough of these tricks. Where is your planet? What defense can you possibly mount against 1,000 warships?" Lin's expression became more serious. "Admiral Zortak, I'm going to be direct. Humanity has spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. What you're witnessing is just the beginning of what we can do. The question isn't whether you can defeat us. The question is whether we can find a peaceful resolution before things get unpleasant. Zortak's tactical officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting a massive energy buildup from the human moon." On the main screen, the seemingly barren moon's surface was changing. Sections were sliding open, revealing massive structures beneath. Lights flickered across its surface as dormant systems awakened. "That would be our lunar defense platform," Lin explained casually. "One of our older installations, actually. We kept it as a backup." The science officer's voice shook as he reported, "The energy readings, they're beyond anything in our records. Admiral, if those are weapons." Lin raised her hand. "We don't have to demonstrate, Admiral. Not today. Take your fleet and return to Valkyrie space. Tell your leaders what you've seen. Tell them Earth is willing to negotiate a new peace, as equals this time." Zortak stood silent, his mind racing. The human smiled again, seeming to read his thoughts. "Or stay," she said softly, "and learn firsthand why humans laughed when you declared war." Admiral Zortak sat alone in his private chamber aboard the Valkyrie flagship. The room was dark except for the blue glow of multiple screens floating in the air before him. His clawed hands moved rapidly over the controls, cycling through the data that the mysterious human devices had uploaded to his ship's computer. He had ordered the fleet to maintain position while he reviewed the information. 6 hours had passed, and with each new file, each new revelation, the cold feeling in his chest grew stronger. The first files showed weapon systems unlike anything the Valkyrie had imagined, not simply more powerful versions of known technology, but entirely new approaches to warfare. Zortak watched footage of a small human vessel absorbing the energy from a test blast that should have vaporized a small moon. The energy simply disappeared into the ship's hull, which glowed briefly before returning to normal. Another file showed a demonstration of their shield technology, not the energy barriers all advanced races used, but something the humans called dimensional folding. Incoming attacks didn't hit a barrier. They simply disappeared into what appeared to be small tears in space itself, emerging somewhere else entirely. "Impossible," Zortak whispered, his throat sacs pulsing softly in distress. He moved to communications data. The humans had developed quantum entanglement networks that operated instantly across any distance without any possibility of interception or jamming. The Valkyrie's most advanced communication systems, pride of their military, were primitive by comparison. But what truly shook him were the energy production files. The humans had built Dyson swarms, vast networks of satellites capturing the entire energy output of stars, around multiple suns in hidden systems. The energy available to them made the combined output of the entire Valkyrie Dominion look like a child's power cell. Zortak's first officer entered the chamber after a respectful knock. "Admiral, the fleet commanders are requesting instructions. The crew is becoming unsettled." Zortak gestured to the screens. "Have you reviewed this data?" "Yes, Admiral. The science division believes it must be fabricated. Such technology violates too many known physical laws." Zortak's throat sacs fluttered in annoyance. "It is not fabricated. They moved the planet, Subcommander. They stopped time around our fleet. These are not tricks." His officer lowered his head submissively but persisted. "Even if some of it is real, surely not all of it can be. The biological modifications they claim to have made." "Show me your arm," Zortak interrupted. Confused, the officer extended his right arm. Zortak pressed a control, and one of the small scanning devices that the humans had placed on the ship hovered over to them. It emitted a soft blue light that passed over the officer's arm. A new screen appeared, showing a detailed internal view of the limb. But it showed more than just the expected biological structures. Tiny machines were visible, moving through the officer's circulatory system. "What is this?" the officer asked, his voice rising in alarm. "According to the human data, they are medical nanobots. Millions of them, introduced into our systems when we entered the time dilation field. They are currently dormant, simply mapping our biology." The officer staggered back. "They're inside all of us." "Yes. And according to this," Zor Tak gestured to another screen showing a human body with similar machines visible throughout. "They have lived with such technology for centuries. Their bodies repair themselves. They don't age as we do. Disease is unknown to them." The officer's neck frills drooped in shock. This cannot be." Before Zortak could respond, the main communication console chimed. The small scanning device returned to its position near the ceiling. "Admiral," the communications officer's voice came through. "We're receiving a new transmission from the humans." "Display it," Zortak ordered. The information screens vanish, replaced by a single larger image. An older human male appeared, his face marked with lines that suggested great age, though his posture remained straight and strong. His eyes were what struck Zortak most. They seemed to hold a depth that spoke of centuries of experience. "Admiral Zortak, I am Director Marcus Chen, Human Defense Coordinator. I hope you've had sufficient time to review the information we provided." Zortak straightened his posture, determined to maintain dignity despite his growing dread. "I have reviewed it. Much of it seems difficult to believe." The human named Chen nodded. "I understand it must seem like deception or exaggeration. But I assure you, if anything, we've understated our capabilities in that data package." "Why reveal this now?" Zor Tak asked. "If your kind has possessed such power for so long, why maintain the charade of being merely moderately advanced?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "We've maintained the illusion of modest progress because we learned long ago that true power lies in restraint. 3,000 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We vowed never again to wage war among our own kind, but we also vowed never again to be unprepared." The human paused, allowing Zortak to absorb his words. "Our history is filled with empires that displayed their strength too proudly, only to become targets. We chose a different path. We watched, we learned, we built, all while presenting ourselves as just another developing species." Zortak felt his pride giving way to a more primal emotion. Fear. "The nanomachines in our bodies, are they weapons?" "No," Chen replied firmly. "They are currently passive observers. We do not attack without warning or provocation. Had we wished to harm you, Admiral, your fleet would not exist now." The human directness was unsettling. In Valkyrie culture, power was always flaunted, threats always made explicit to intimidate. This calm statement of fact was somehow more frightening. "I will show you one more thing, Admiral, something not included in the data package," Chen said. The image shifted, showing what appeared to be a massive construction in space. It took Zortak a moment to recognize it as Earth, the missing planet, but surrounded by an enormous lattice of interconnected structures. "This is Earth now, in its new position in a pocket dimension adjacent to normal space. What you're seeing is the planetary defense grid, just one layer of our protection. It represents technology we developed over 1,000 years ago." The image zoomed out further, revealing similar structures around other planets and moons, an entire solar system protected by technology beyond comprehension. "We did not build this because we wanted war, Admiral. We built it because we understood that peace must sometimes be defended." Zortak slumped slightly in his seat. "What do you want from us?" "Nothing you don't wish to give freely," Chen answered. "Return to your people. Tell them what you've seen. Let them know that humans desire peaceful coexistence, trade, cultural exchange, but will not tolerate aggression." The human's expression became firmer. "The 3,000-year peace doesn't need to end, Admiral. It can be renewed on more honest terms." As the transmission ended, Zortak stared at the empty space where the human's image had been. After several minutes of silence, he turned to his first officer. "Prepare the fleet for return to Valkyrie space," he ordered quietly. Without engaging the humans, without attempting to locate their planet, the officer asked, his neck frills rippling in confusion. Zortak looked at him steadily. We have already lost this war. We simply didn't know it until today. 3 months later, Ambassador Ilara Chen stood in the newly constructed Hall of Parity on neutral space station Concordia. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations gathered around the circular table, with the Valkyrie Supreme Commander Vexnar seated directly across from her. The Valkyrie leader's scales had lost some of their luster since their last meeting, and his posture was less domineering. The humbling revelations about humanity's true capabilities had rippled through the Galactic Assembly, causing a fundamental reassessment of interspecies relations. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth, announced the luminary mediator, her crystalline form pulsing with light. Chen stepped forward. Thank you, mediator. I am pleased to announce that after extensive negotiations, Earth and the Valkyrie Dominion have reached a new peace accord, one based on mutual respect rather than perceived power imbalances. She glanced at Vexnar, who gave a slight nod. Furthermore, Chen continued, humanity is prepared to share certain technological advances with the Assembly, particularly in medicine, sustainable energy, and environmental restoration. We believe that cooperation, not competition, is the path forward for all our civilizations. A murmur of excitement passed through the gathered representatives. The Valkyrie declaration of war, intended to subjugate humanity, had instead unlocked possibilities that most species had never imagined. Later, as the formal proceedings concluded, Vexnar approached Chen in a quiet corner of the hall. Your kind could have destroyed us, he said without preamble. Why didn't you? Chen smiled. Because that was never our goal, Commander. We prepared for war for 3,000 years precisely, so we would never have to fight one. A paradox, Vexnar observed. Perhaps, but one that worked. Chen offered her hand in the human gesture of friendship. The universe is vast and often hostile. We're better facing it together than wasting resources fighting each other. After a moment's hesitation, the Valkyrie commander extended his scaled hand to meet hers. Across human space, the laughter had given way to something else, a quiet pride, not in domination, but in the vindication of a philosophy thousands of years in the making. They had not won a war. They had prevented one. And in doing so, perhaps changed the course of galactic history. The 3,000-year peace had not ended. It had merely transformed into something stronger, a peace born not of fear or ignorance, but of understanding and respect. And that, humanity knew, was worth all their patience.